This episode of Smart People Podcast is supported by Sidekick by HubSpot. With Sidekick, you can get powerful contact insight right in your inbox. Sidekick seamlessly integrates with your email so you can receive live notifications when someone opens and clicks on your emails and schedule emails to be sent when you're offline. Go to getsidekick.com/smartpeople to get your first month of Sidekick for free.
A podcast where we talk to smart people, but not necessarily done by smart people.
That is an awesome question.
This one goes down probably on one of my top 5.
Hey, I like nutrition. I like to eat food. This is the coolest thing ever. We're going to do this forever.
I wish I paid more attention in that class.
You know, I'm going to be honest, I don't understand that. As a man, I don't get it.
Welcome to smartpeoplepodcast.com.
Hello and welcome to Smart People Podcast, conversations that satisfy your curious mind. I'm Chris Stemp, and I have a brain teaser to start this off. What do Teddy Ruxpin, the Garbage Pail Kids, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Skip It have in common? They all remind me of my childhood. I don't know how you could have got that, but I'm just on this childhood kick now that this week we are interviewing, a hero for my generation? Chunk from the Goonies? Are you kidding me? Remember the Truffle Shuffle? Yeah, the guy who originated that is going to be on this show in a few minutes. His real name is Jeff Cohen, and surprisingly, 30 years ago, he starred in that fantastic movie, The Goonies, alongside another one of my favorite characters, Sloth. You know, when I told my wife we were having Jeff on the show, she goes, "So because he was in a movie, he's a smart person?" And I said, well, no, but I would have had him on anyways. But it turns out Jeff's doing really great for himself. And I wanted to have him on not only to talk about the Goonies, but to talk about what he's doing now. So after kind of a short stint as a childhood actor, Jeff went on to get his degree from Berkeley and then went on to UCLA for law school. Jeff is a founding partner of an entertainment law firm, and he just wrote his first book called The Dealmaker's 10 Commandments, 10 Essential Tools for Business Forged in the Trenches of Hollywood. So I'd say the first half of the interview we dedicate to the Goonies, obviously, and I get to be a fanboy for a little bit. And then the second half, we talk about what Jeff has seen in Hollywood, the cutthroat environment that it provides, and how he gets deals done. What has he learned that can help all of us get a little bit more of what we want? So, how big of a Goonies fan are you? If the answer was big, then you're going to enjoy this upcoming part. We have a fantastic giveaway for you. Jeff has personally signed a brand new DVD of the Goonies, and it will be yours for the small price of a tweet. So head on over to Twitter and tell the world what you liked about the Goonies, what you like about Jeff, what you like about the podcast. Get creative, anything you like. Just make sure you tag us in it. We are at SmartPeoplePod, and use the hashtag chunk. So again, head on over to Twitter, send out a tweet about the show or the Goonies, whatever you want. Make sure to tag us at SmartPeoplePod and use the hashtag chunk. We will pick one lucky winner, and they will be getting an autographed Goonies DVD. What? That's crazy. All right, going to turn it over to Jeff. You can find us at smartpeoplepodcast.com. Be sure to sign up for our newsletter where we send out all the amazing things we learn and don't tell you here on the show. Without further ado, let's get that truffle shuffle going as we talk to Jeff Cohen, better known as Chunk. First, I want to say, Jeff, I am like a fanboy. This is a dream come true. I have
Nice.
Chunk from the Goonies on here, so thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show.
No, thanks for having me. And I understand. I mean, look, the weight of being a cultural icon, like Chunk is heavy, but it's something I deal with every day. So I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed the film.
I know that could have some tongue in cheek there, but it's really true. And one of the first questions I wanted to ask you is, what is that like? I mean, do you realize it?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess to a degree, it's kind of like Birdman. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, wherever I go, there's like a little 10-year-old truffle shuffle, truffle shuffling like behind me at any, but I don't know, man. Like, I'm an entertainment lawyer. So I think like my clients get a kick out of the fact, and it's somewhat helpful that I have the background of being on the other side of the camera back in the old days when the world was young and I had a hair and, and Reagan was beginning his second administration.
Oh my God.
I don't know, man. It's cool. It's certainly weird. It's a very weird thing, but I love entertainment, and now I just contribute, to entertainment in a different way. But I get a kick out of it.
Well, speaking of the truffle shuffle, did you originate that? I mean, were you the first one to coin, and maybe it was Spielberg or somebody that came up with it, but to actually coin it, do it, and then popularize it?
Well, the screenplay for Goonies was actually written by Christopher Columbus, and I think the story was by Christopher and Steven. So I know the term truffle shuffle was in the script. I mean, I just, of course, did the dance because I was just a chubby little lunatic, and then film history is made, I suppose.
I mean, I had a larger college roommate, and the truffle shuffle was a daily part of our life. I remember in high school, the fat guy, truffle shuffle on the football field. That's iconic.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad that I've, somewhat something that I helped, create has terrorized heavyset people for now 30 years, which is terrible. But what do you do? What do you do?
So you mentioned that you were kind of that terrorizing kid. Was that actually your personality, or was that the just what you put on for the movie?
I mean, I was a ham when I was a little kid. So, that was kind of my personality. I was like, kind of hammy, always trying to be funny.
Yeah. So did you know what Goonies was gonna turn into? Did you have any idea? I mean, yes, you were young, or was it just, I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to be a child actor. So, I mean, I'm just wondering, did you know what it was going to be a cult classic?
No, I didn't. It was great to work with Richard Donner, the director, and Steven Spielberg, who's the producer of it. But I didn't really, I mean, I was a kid, I didn't know.
Right. That's what I'm wondering. Does the gravity of any type of situation like that hit you when you're that young?
Well, I mean, it was for me, when I was a kid actor, I wanted to be Spanky from the Little Rascals. That was my goal. I was a little chubby kid, and I grew up kind of watching the old, black and white short films, The Little Rascals, and it's Spanky and Alfalfa and Buckwheat and these like amazing kid actors, and Spanky was like the fat kid, and he was funny, and he was kind of the boss, and I wanted to be like him. So for me, it was just, give my best Spanky, I suppose.
I love it. And I mean, I'll stop gushing about it soon, but I was born in 83. I had an older brother, 5 years older. I've seen the Goonies probably 100 times. I still quote it. I'd say when Sloth is like, Sloth? Chunk. That's like, that might come out of my mouth once a week. You know what I mean? Cool. Between me and my friends. So cool. What is that? I've always wanted to ask somebody in your position. You said it's weird. Is there any way to describe the fact that millions of people have seen your performances, will quote lines that you've said, anything like that? Or is this so far in the past you go, man, I've answered these questions so many times I don't even think about it?
Well, I mean, look, for me, if we're going to do one movie, that's a good movie to have done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think I was kind of lucky in that, I did Goonies and I did like all the 80s sitcoms and stuff like that, but I never got so famous that I couldn't do something else. You know what I mean? Like when I hit puberty and I couldn't get work and everything got weird, because all I had wanted to do was be an actor. And then I kind of hit puberty and I was, beginning the transformation from Chunk to Hunk, the gorgeous, piece of man meat that I am now.
Of course.
It was really hard for me at the time, but looking back, and it's funny, I actually write about this in my book a little bit, The Dealmaker's 10 Commandments. the fact that I had some, little taste of fame without being so famous that I couldn't actually do something else and have, an entry level job and kind of work my way up, through the entertainment ranks, I think was actually good. So I feel like I kind of had just enough fame without having too much,
Yeah, and oftentimes, I mean, if you go to that next level, what it can do to the psyche and the ego, and especially as a child actor, we've seen it time and time again.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I don't know you personally, but I'm assuming, given that you have a respectable professional career and you've written this book, which is fantastic, and we're going to talk about that, the Dealmaker's 10 Commandments.
Well, I don't know if I agree that lawyers are respectable, but I appreciate that. That's very,
you know what? That's a good point.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It obviously didn't screw you up too bad, and maybe that is a blessing in disguise that you didn't go on to be, the Lindsay Lohan of your generation.
Well, it's funny. It's interesting in my book. Kind of before I get into the Dealmaker's 10 Commandments, which are like kind of my rules for negotiating deals, managing your time, handling crisis. It's a business book, but the preface is called Chunk Meets Machiavelli, and I talk about being in kind of an out of work child actor and not knowing kind of not having any meaning, not understanding that. Why did this all go away? And there's that idea, there's a quote that I love, which is, the beauty of first love is our ignorance that it will ever end. And for me, acting was my first love, and when it ends, you're shocked. You're like, well, I don't understand. Like, is this how it works? I don't know. I didn't get it. So, I think that, it was really hard for me actually to like kind of figure something else out and try to find something else that I could, succeed at. So, yeah, I think being a former child actor is not always, the perfect recipe for success. Is not always synonymous with winner. And part of the reason I think that is the case is, I think when kids are working, that's kind of weird. Especially like when you need the money, when it's not like, like, oh, I got a paper route, but when you when you're working and there's a lot of pressure on you, I think that's weird to put a kid in that situation. Secondly, I think with acting specifically, that's difficult, for children to kind of process when that's your job, is that, the whole point of acting is to kind of decipher what the audience wants, decipher what the director wants, decipher what the producer wants, and give it to them, So, and then you have to, figure out what the character needs. You have to kind of be someone else to a degree. And, when you're a kid actor, you have to be someone else without knowing who you are.
Yes.
Which I think can somewhat, stunt your growth, emotionally. So for me, like, if there's one thing that I can pinpoint, like, wow, that's why it's kind of hard to be, I think developmentally to be a, kid actor, it's that aspect of it, of having to be someone else before you know who you are yourself.
That's a really good point, and something that I wanted to touch on, which was, I've always wondered if it's harder or easier to be a child actor, because when I think back to when I was, I mean, how old were you in that movie? Like 10?
Yeah, I was 10, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So when I think back to that time, you're not quite beaten down by who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do. You don't mind making an idiot of yourself. You're not as self-conscious, I don't think. At least you're not as self-conscious as you are when you're like 16 or 18
Sure.
or whatever it might be. And
Sure.
so I think maybe it's easier to just go out and say, I'm just going to do it and have fun. Obviously, there's some pressure, but perhaps not the same pressure as your first job out of college, say.
Yeah, I think it's like it's W.C. Fields, old joke. I hate kids and dogs. Because if you're on stage with a kid or a dog, you're going to be upstaged by the kid or the dog, because you're right. There's something very natural, that a dog off camera is the same as they are on camera.
Bingo, yeah.
And a kid kind of hanging out with their friends is very likely to be very similar, when they're on camera hanging out with their friends in the script. So yeah, I think there's something, hopefully that's naturally, that's natural about a kid's performance. Also, I think with Goonies specifically, and for me, I think kind of part of the reason that it holds up, which is, kind of astonishing and great, is that the director, Richard Donner, really wanted kids to be kids. Like, kids talk over each other. Kids curse a lot, when they're that age. And we curse all throughout that film. There's no way, kind of in modern, like, Disney Channel days, that Goonies with its language is ever going to get a PG rating. Never in a million years.
Yeah.
But Richard Donner, the director, very much to his credit, wanted us to behave like how kids behave. And they talk over each other and they curse and they kind of, push each other. And I think that even though Goonies is dated in a lot of ways, it's very much a 1985 film. Looking at it, kids being kids is eternal. That's something that's perpetual. So I think the reason why now, you could maybe, watch it with your kids, or someone can watch the film with their kids, and they could both enjoy it, is, it's kids being kids, which is always fun.
Yeah, I got to say, this was one of the most fun interviews to prepare for, because I just said, I had an excuse. I told my wife, I got to watch Goonies. I'm interviewing
Nice.
Chunk tonight.
Nice.
So I really appreciate that break you gave me.
Living the dream.
Living
the dream.
Living the dream. So when, kids being kids, that is one vibe you get when watching the movie, that it's just a couple of best friends going out there getting into trouble, mischief. I mean, really, it is something. Again, I remember watching it as a kid, and it kind of represented that the freedom, the exploration, the imagination. Was it fun? Like, did you have a good time? Did you enjoy the cast? Did you feel pressured the whole time? And did it hit you that you were making this movie?
Well, I think I was very jealous. I was very, very jealous because, as you know, pretty early on in the movie, the kids and I, the other Goonies, we get separated, and I'm locked in the basement with a 7-foot monster.
But that was the best. That was like the best part of the movie.
Well, I'm in no position to disagree, so I appreciate it. But it turned out great. But at the time, I was so jealous because I'd be like, hey, Key, Key Kwan, who played Data, and hey, Key, what are you guys doing today? We're doing the water slide. What about you, Jeff? I'm locked in the basement. With a monster.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean, what are you doing today? We got this organ and it's made out of bones and the floor falls away. What are you doing? They're gonna put my hand in a blender today, so we're gonna see. The Fratellis are going to try to put my hand in a blender. We're going to see how that works out. So at the time, I was very jealous, but ultimately, it did work out.
So you touched on some key points in the movie here. One being, let's talk about Sloth. Was he actually that scary while you were alongside of him, or could you just tell it was so much prosthetics that really made it that amazing?
Sure. No, Sloth was actually portrayed by an actor, John Matusak, who was just a great guy, really nice guy. Unfortunately, has passed away. But he was actually like super nice to me, and I think did a great job playing the role. Where it got scary was actually when I was a teenager and I played football. Just junior varsity football at my high school, and I would watch the NFL films. I love those old NFL films where they, it's like, what I'm talking about? It's like, 1964,
oh, yeah.
Green Bay Packers versus the Bears, like those like slow-mo, dudes beating the crap out of each other, old football films. And they did, I was watching an episode or a film about like the great Raiders, the great Oakland Raiders defensive lineman, and they had all this footage of John Matusak, because John Matusak was, a fantastic defensive lineman and absolutely brutal.
I did not know that. Yeah.
Yes. When he played in the NFL, this is absolutely true. He was the largest man in the NFL. He's enormous. Yes. I want to say he's about 6'7" and change and broad and just, just like a Greek god, just huge. And to watch, Sloth, as an Oakland Raider, just beating the crap out of these people, that was scary. So I was like, wow, he was super nice to me, but I'm glad I didn't get on his bad side.
Yeah.
He was a huge, angry defensive lineman.
Now let's take a break for a message from our sponsor this week. Our episode is brought to you by lynda.com, the online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. For a free 10-day trial, visit lynda.com/smartpeople. That's lynda.com/smartpeople. Lynda.com is for problem solvers, for the curious, for people who want to make things happen. and we think that's you. Maybe you want to master Excel, learn how to negotiate, learn how to build a website, boost your Photoshop skills. Go to lynda.com/smartpeople and feed that curious mind. Some of the courses I recommend are Going Paperless, Start to Finish, Income Tax Fundamentals, although we might have missed that, you can always use it next year, and Growth Hacking Fundamentals. Everybody wants to hack, why not grow faster? With a lynda.com membership, you can watch and learn from top experts, stream thousands of videos, and learn at your own pace. Your lynda.com membership will give you unlimited access to training on hundreds of topics, all for one flat rate. Whether you're looking to become an industry expert, you're passionate about a hobby, or you just want to learn something, I want you to visit lynda.com/smartpeople and sign up for your free 10-day trial. That's lynda.com/smartpeople. Now back to the show.
It was so funny when you mentioned data. I was just thinking, his best line of the whole movie. And again, we still say it. I'll still say it with my friends. Is that's what I said? A booty trap.
Yeah, no, he's the best. Yeah, I love that guy.
There's so many great quotes. What have any of the cast gone on to stay in the industry, or have they all gone their separate ways? And do you keep in touch with any of them?
I think for me, the director Richard Donner, I'm friends with a bunch of kids from the show, or I guess kids back adults now, but kids when we were kids. But for me, kind of a really important relationship, and still is actually, is Richard Donner, who directed Goonies and also directed Superman, the original Superman, and The Omen and all the Lethal Weapons, and him and his wife Lauren Schuler Donner, who's an amazing remarkable film producer, produced basically all of the X-Men films. So Dick, really kind of took me under his wing, especially when acting didn't work out, and let me work for him as a production assistant.
Oh, wow.
At his offices at Warner Brothers at the time. And, he was like, "Hey, kid, what do you want to do?" He's got this big booming voice. I was like, "I want to be an actor, Dick." And he's like, "That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. You're not going to be an actor." He's like, you got to figure it out. So he was really helpful in kind of showing me the business side of the entertainment industry, and actually got me my first job as an entertainment lawyer when I was still in law school at UCLA at Universal Studios Television. So
Wow.
So I think for me, kind of that continued relationship with Richard Donner and watching all the amazing stuff that him and his wife Lauren could do, and really learning from that and trying to emulate that, has been for me like kind of the most important relationship from the film.
Well, I definitely want to talk about kind of your life in Hollywood and your new book again, The Dealmaker's Commandments. And I appreciate you reminiscing on some Goonies with me. I only have, a couple more questions, really not even specifically in regards to the movie, but like one question that came up is, so you're in this movie, you do great. Obviously, it's a little bit of a character role, or it's really driven by you and by your looks and by your actions and who you are. But it would seem that you would be able to make a career as an actor after what you did as a child. There are roles, regardless of your age, your looks, whatever, in Hollywood. Why didn't it transition, or why did Dick just say don't do it?
Because he was telling me the truth. He was being smart, look, here's the truth of it. Like, acting, for my money, is the greatest job in the world.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
Like nobody, no matter what they say, no one intentionally gives up acting. It's the best job. Everyone's super nice to you, and you get to play make-believe and dress up, and you get to travel. And especially for me as a fat kid, there was food literally everywhere.
Good food.
Yeah, great food.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like, craft service is the fancy movie term for it, but it's basically a table filled with like awesome candy and like cold cuts and, a food truck that'll make you anything. So it was the best gig in the world, I think for me specifically, I looked different and I couldn't get work, and I had to kind of look at that and just say, okay, like, you really loved acting and that was really meaningful to you. But, and I talk about this in the book, it's Dealmaker's Commandment 4, actually. Things are precisely as they seem. And, the market was not responding to me, and that's fine. That's totally reasonable. I wasn't really a cute kid anymore. I didn't have anything really interesting to say. So I was like, okay, Jeff, you have to find another way you can contribute to the business, find something else you can be, good at. And that was kind of the beginning of my, my change, I suppose.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting as you discuss it. I mean, my brother, he's a little bit older than me. He's been in LA since straight out of college. He went out there to be an actor, had a few small roles, now makes his living mostly as an extra. He gets commercial gigs. And it takes a certain personality to persevere through everything that's out there. I mean,
Sure.
It's, he's now, I think he's about 35, and he noticed a lot of his commercial roles dwindling. And he said, well, I just wonder if I passed that age now where I look like the mid-20s kid that everybody's trying to market to. And I'm like,
Right.
damn, like that's brutal. You were working all the time one year and hardly anything the next, So,
Well, I mean, it's funny. I think that's right. I think being an actor is so difficult and challenging. And I think because I have, a little bit of experience on that side of it, I think part of the reason, my law firm, that I started way back in '02, so about 13 years ago, that we've had the success we have had in entertainment is, for me, understanding how challenging it is to be a performer is not merely academic.
Right.
Like I get it. Like, yeah, that's hard. I think the fact that our clients know that, that I can really empathize has been helpful. But yeah, man, it's challenging for sure.
well, and let's talk about that. So you transitioned, you went to law school. I'm wondering, obviously the goal there was to do entertainment law, I'm assuming. And it's very similar to, for example, I played baseball up to the collegiate level. I thought maybe, when I was diluted, I had a chance of going further. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll coach in the future, or at a minimum teach my kid. So the same way what you do when you're young, you want to incorporate in your life later. Was that the decision process to become an entertainment lawyer?
No, you know what? I think it was lack of any other viable options. I think it was kind of, I had been fired from so many jobs. I was like, okay, dude, like what can you not get fired at? What will you be okay at? And it's funny when I went to Berkeley for undergraduate, and I was like, okay, I was like, I wanted to get away from entertainment. I didn't know that I wanted to do something in entertainment anymore. And I was like, okay, what do ex-actors do well at in California? I was like, politics, right? Politics. I'm like, Reagan, we had Reagan as governor,
Yeah.
former actor. We had the governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, former actor. So like, okay, cool. So at Berkeley, I got really involved in politics, and I eventually became student body president with the amazing slogan, Chunk for President. Chunk for President. Absolutely amazing.
You have my vote.
Victory. There you go.
I
right?
mean, seriously.
No.
I mean, come on, Donald Trump? Like, let's be honest. I'll take Chunk.
And I agree. I think in the Chunk Trump head-to-head battle, Chunk's totally taken that.
Absolutely.
It's a landslide. So I mean, I wanted, so I kind of, experimented with politics. I was like, oh, maybe that's something kind of governmental, do something over there. When I went to Berkeley, my undergraduate was also in business. I was like, okay, well, maybe just strictly business. But what I had studied, I still really enjoyed entertainment. And, when I was a kid, like my hero was Spanky in the Three Stooges, and I wanted to just be a comedic, actor. But as I got older, then my heroes became the moguls. I studied, Lou R. Wasserman and, David Geffen and Jeffrey Katzenberg and Louis B. Mayer. And I was like, wow, these guys really made an amazing impact in entertainment, and they were all great deal makers. That was one thing they all had in common. Whether it's Bernie Brillstein or Mike Ovitz or whoever, they were amazing deal makers. And I was like, okay, go to law school, study business law, which was my focus, and kind of take it from there.
Well, I'm glad we kind of transitioned into this because, again, the book is The Dealmaker's 10 Commandments, 10 Essential Tools for Business Forged in the Trenches of Hollywood. What prompted you to write that? What prompted you to tell these 10 Commandments, which we'll get into? I'm really interested in when you said, you know what, I think I need to write a book.
Well, it's interesting. In the publisher is actually the American Bar Association, and they have a commercial imprint which is called Anchorwyke. So this is basically a business book. They had come to me eventually, or they came to me and said, because they had profiled me for the American Bar Association Journal, and they're like, "Hey Jeff, we want to do something about entertainment. Can you give us a pitch?" So I thought about it, and I was like, look, I want to open it up a little bit because I love business books. I love those kind of, those books that really kind of break it down for you. So I was like, my pitch to them was as follows. Success is life on your own terms. And the Dealmaker's 10 Commandments are going to help the reader ascertain what those terms are and then give them the tools to get them. So the big idea is that the Dealmaker's 10 Commandments, and I've written it broadly for basically any business person. It's definitely a business book. And even in the beginning of the book, I have a warning. And I use a quote, which is, "Good and great are seldom the same man." And what I say is, this is a book about being great. It's not a book about being good. If you want to be good, there are other books for that. It's pretty hardcore, kind of realpolitik view of business and how brutal it can be and how brutal you have to be to win, And basically the Dealmaker's 10 Commandments are tools to negotiate great deals, manage your time, handle crisis at the highest level without losing your soul. So big picture, that's what the book's all about.
Well, at that last part, let's talk about that. How do you, save your soul in Hollywood? I feel like it's a pretty soul-sucking place.
It's interesting. Dealmakers, I'm going to, spoiler alert, Dealmaker's Commandment 10, I'm just going to come with, because kind of throughout the book, there's, Dealmaker's first commandment is, it is better to be feared than loved. Which is, of course, from the great Renaissance philosopher Niccolò Machiavelli. And he wrote it in the early 1500s, and it's still true. The idea being that people are afraid of you because you make them. That's something you control. You can control people being afraid of you, but you cannot control them loving you. That's their decision. And if you're a deal maker, if you're a capitalist, you have to be able to build an empire on things that you can control. Now, for me, and I talk about it kind of before I get into chapter 1 of the book, as an actor, the whole exercise is being loved. So that's what I wanted. That's what that was my goal. And when that failed, I didn't know what to do. And it wasn't until, late high school, I read the book called The Prince, written by Niccolò Machiavelli, which, is kind of the greatest, self-help book of all time. He wrote it as advice to a prince in the early 1500s in Renaissance Italy, of like, hey, if you want to be a prince, this is how you do it. This is how you get power. This is how you deal with your subjects. This is how you deal with your enemies. And a key point for him is better to be feared than loved. And that's kind of how I kick off the book. Now, as far as losing your soul or not losing your soul, I'll jump to the end, Dealmaker's Commandment 10, which is heed Nietzsche's warning. Nietzsche's warning, as I see it, being the following, which Friedrich Nietzsche said, "Beware when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster." And I think to be a successful business person, you got to do a lot of brutal things, and the economy is really brutal, and capitalism is really hard, and sometimes to win, you're going to have to do some really ugly stuff. The question is, how do you fight these monsters without becoming one? And that's something that I kind of deal with in the book as well.
Smart People Podcast is supported by Wealthfront, the automated investment service that makes it easy to invest your money the right way. Wealthfront software manages your money using investment strategies that were previously only available to the wealthiest investors for just 1/4 of the cost of using a traditional advisor. Wealthfront monitors your account 24/7, automatically rebalancing your portfolio, reinvesting dividends, and working to maximize your after-tax returns. Wealthfront is also overseen by a team of investment experts, the same experts who helped launch the index fund revolution and who've written some of the most important books in finance. In case you're still not convinced, you should know that Wealthfront manages over $2 billion in client assets and has saved millions of dollars on taxes for its clients. So with Wealthfront watching over your investments every day, what will you do with all your extra time? Visit wealthfront.com/smartpeople to get your first $10,000 managed for free. Wealthfront Inc. is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are offered through Wealthfront Brokerage Corporation, member FINRA and SIPC. This is not a solicitation to buy or sell securities. Investing in securities involves risks, and there is a possibility of losing money. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Please visit wealthfront.com to read their full disclosure.
It's interesting. I have this inner conflict going on because I am I'm on the lines of I'd much rather be loved or at least liked than anything else, right? And that's not necessarily a good thing, but
a lot
It's
of
very
people,
human. It's
yeah,
very-
and a lot of people do like being in my presence. And
Sure.
I sometimes I feel like, I'd rather have an abundance of good connections, friendships, than have money if that money has to be earned through creating fear or screwing other people over. What would you say to the person that's
Sure.
like, look, man, I want to have both of them. I want to be liked and have money.
And you know what? I think that's totally reasonable. I guess I would say the first thing is, in the warning section of my book, what I say is, look, the techniques that I'm advocating now are for business. They are not for pleasure. They are not for, friends and lovers and puppies. These tactics should be used in business. They should not be used in your personal life. The second thing I would say is I totally respect that. It makes sense. I think merely from a perspective of self-defense, it's important to know what the Dealmaker's 10 Commandments are, because even if as a business person you're not comfortable using these tactics, people who you're dealing with will be comfortable using these tactics.
Yeah.
So merely from a position of self-defense, merely from knowing like, this is kind of what other people are doing, it's important to know. But I respect that. Everyone has to make the choices that, that makes them comfortable.
And I think there's a lot of truth in that statement. I was just talking to a friend of mine who got laid off. She walked into work and she worked at a fairly small firm, 20 employees or so. And the owner just said, you know what, I'm retiring. I'm not even selling the company. I'm literally dissolving it within weeks. And she said, well, what about us? And the guy really didn't care. And I think that story happens a lot, unfortunately. And people, especially employees, oftentimes feel this sense of duty, and the employers simply don't.
Well, it's interesting. I would go to Dealmaker's Commandment 3, which is everyone is on the same side, their own. When you're kind of evaluating a business environment and you're kind of analyzing, and I kind of go through different tactics that I use to create what I call a motivation mosaic, which is you kind of look at all the parties to a specific endeavor and you're like, what does everybody want? And then what does the side as a whole want versus what do the individuals want? And, self-interested behavior, although, maybe not laudable, is certainly the rule.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I've been, I was actually, and I actually write about it in the book. I was actually working, at a studio, and basically my division got dissolved. And it was fine for me because I was a kid, I was young.
Mm-hmm.
But there were really talented, good executives in their 50s who had worked at this studio for decades, and they were in trouble, and they were left out in the cold, and I saw that happen, and it broke my heart. And I was like, wow, business can get really cold really quick. So, for me, part of the reason is writing this book is to give people the tools to be prepared for that and ways to deal with that. So that way, hopefully they're prepared, before the well has run dry.
Well, and I have a question here because, I've read a lot of reviews on the book. Everyone loves it, by the way. I'm sorry I haven't got a chance to read it yet, but I know you guys are sending over a copy, and I can't wait. And everyone says like, wow, he's funny, he's likable. We've all seen you as Chunk. You sound, you seem like a nice guy. I've interviewed 200 people. I'm a pretty good judge of character. I think you're a pretty nice guy. You put things out there, open and honest. I don't see this fear-inducing, cutthroat lawyer aspect. Is there a balance? Is there a way you can say, look, I'm a good person, but I have to hold these 10 commandments true as I'm negotiating because that's my job?
Well, I appreciate that, but we've never negotiated a deal against each other.
Right. Yes. So that's what I'm saying.
We've never been in the pit together.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Do you really just separate it by like, here's who I am as a person, here's who I am as a lawyer?
It's interesting. Part of, and I deal with this in the book, Dealmaker's Commandment 8, be a deal maker, not a deal breaker. Ultimately the exercise of economic combat is not to show everybody how smart you are or how awesome your car is or, how loud you can yell. That's not the point, right? The point is to make a deal. Because if you don't make a deal, you don't get paid, your client doesn't get paid, the endeavor fails, So what I write about in the book is one thing that a deal maker is not is bloodthirsty. you're not an animal. You don't want to hurt someone to hurt them. It has to be to basically teach the other side a lesson under the auspices of bad behavior requires consequences. So you don't just strike out, without reason. It's if someone has misbehaved, they have to be punished. And you kind of need an effective mechanism of punishment for the opposing side so they learn not to screw with you. So, so that's basically the big idea.
Yeah, and again, maybe a lot of this viewpoint is also because of the industry you're in. Is that a fairly obvious type assessment, you think?
You know what? It's interesting. It's funny. In the book, because with my extra long title, and I do agree it is a very long title. It's 10 essential tips for business forged in the trenches of Hollywood. Mm-hmm. So my experience is as a transactional attorney negotiating deals for media companies, for actors, for directors, for writers, whatever. And I kind of pepper throughout the book different entertainment stories, to make it interesting and fun. And I do think everyone's second business is entertainment. Like you can be a coal miner, but you still know what movies are coming out. You know what I mean? Or you'll still have your favorite albums that you love. So I think everyone around the world, even if entertainment isn't their main business, it's going to be their second business because we all love, whether it's video games or books or movies or music. But I actually think if you look at non-entertainment related businesses, they're brutal. They're just brutal, man. Like if you get laid off from Universal Studios, or you get laid off from Coca-Cola, or you get laid off from Ford, you still got laid off. You know what I mean? So I actually think that business generally is brutal. Which is why I think the tactics that I advocate are effective, whether you're working at an insurance company or, in the coal mining business or, or you're an agent at a entertainment agency.
Yeah, and you can probably tell, and the listeners can tell, I'm searching for any just little bit of, no, it doesn't have to be this way, because, I'm the guy that was making six figures in finance. I was actually doing commercial real estate finance as the market crashed. I saw some of the loans that we did be part of the problem, if you will. And
I can't even imagine some of the stuff that you saw go down.
Oh,
right?
it was bonkers. It was insanity. I've seen so many people just get fired. It was nuts. And I left because it's so not in my nature. I helped launch a nonprofit, a life coach. Very much on the opposite end of let's do brutal tactics. And so it's just something that I'm like, I know there's truth to this, and it's really good to learn. I just want to see the good in people. And I think oftentimes it has cost me money or, things that I wanted.
Well, look, I think it is very much about doing whatever you're comfortable, as a human being. But again, I'll go back to that idea of, even if you don't feel comfortable using these tactics, the other guys will be completely comfortable using these tactics.
Yeah,
so merely from self-defense to be like, oh, wow, and in the book, I wanted very much to be honest and to be straightforward and just say, look, man, like, as a lawyer, I'm paid to tell my clients the truth. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm not, if you can't tell your client the truth, if you're telling people, just what they want to hear, then you cannot be an effective advocate. Mm-hmm. So it's very much my job and my training to be like, look, man, this is what's going down. This is my take. We'll do whatever you want, but this is the way I see it.
Absolutely.
So in the book, that was the tactic I wanted to use. It's not, let's all hold hands and be friends. It's like, look, dude, like this is how it goes down. So be ready,
And the thing is, again, I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but the reviews, I've read, a lot about the book, and everybody say, one thing is somebody says it's a modern day art of war. And I think those books have a big place, and we need to know the strategies that are used either against us, what we need to use to get what we want, and in a way that potentially it's not harmful. It's not, you're not lying through your teeth, but it, like you said, capitalism is a brutal game.
It sure is. And I think there's so many institutions that kind of defang us as people, and they kind of domesticate us as people. And then when we're put out in the arena, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So what I hope is that this book can kind of give the reader the tools to arm themselves and kick ass.
Well, Jeff, again, thank you so much for being on the show. The book, The Dealmaker's 10 Commandments, it's brand new. Everybody loves it. I can't wait to get a chance to read it and really take on some of that advice and turn a little bit more inward and see, what do I want and how am I going to get it? Because at the end of the day, if I can do it in a way that meshes with me, that's great. It's for business, as you explained. I wanted to give you a chance. Is there anything you want to let our listeners know? Anywhere else you'd like to guide them? We, of course, will link to the book on smartpeoplepodcast.com, so we'll have that link up there. What else is going on?
Well, it's funny, actually. Throughout the book, I do, precisely as you said, I actually have each of the 10 chapters has what I call a question for self-mastery, which is various questions that I want the reader to ask themselves to discover, who they really are, what they really want, what are they afraid of, what really motivates them. So I'm definitely keyed in on what I think is kind of a key part of the book. I would just say go to Amazon.com. You could buy the hardcover, you could buy the Kindle, or I'll even read you the book. You can buy the audiobook, and this gorgeous voice will actually read it to you if you'd like.
I would like that. I'm going to carry it on. That's like a 10-hour conversation I get to have with you.
Feel free to check me out on Twitter. It's Jeff_B_Cohen.
Okay. Or
Facebook, Jeff B. Cohen, ESQ. Or LinkedIn, Jeff B. Cohen. And I hope to continue the conversation.
Definitely. And Jeff, I'm assuming you're in LA. I'm out there a lot. I might hit you up next time, take you out. Nicest dinner I just want to say what's up to Chunk.
You want better. I'm so excited about this. I've realized a childhood dream. I actually just got a Donkey Kong machine in my office.
Get out of here.
Come over for some Donkey Kong and scotch. It's how we roll, man.
Come happening. Well, you're my favorite. I love this, this book. Thank you for writing it. Can't wait to get it. All right, Jeff, I really appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Chris. Real pleasure. And again, feel free to send the copy. Happy to sign it for you.
I can't wait. Thanks again.
You got it, pal.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Jeff Cohen. Really got to let this one sink in. Like Chris, I've probably seen the Goonies 100+ times. One of my favorite movies from my childhood, and it was just great to hear Jeff and his tales as Chunk and what he's doing now as an entertainment lawyer in Hollywood. Jeff's book, The Dealmaker's 10 Commandments, 10 Essential Tools for Business Forged in the Trenches of Hollywood, can be found online on Amazon or locally at your bookstore. And if you are purchasing it through Amazon, you know the drill. Please use our Amazon link, smartpeoplepodcast.com/Amazon. If you're looking for other easy ways to support the show, please head over to iTunes or Stitcher and leave a rating and review over there. We appreciate it when you do that. So thank you in advance to everybody that heads over to iTunes and Stitcher. If you'd like to get in contact with the show, please shoot us an email at smartpeoplepodcast@gmail.com or send us a message on Twitter at smartpeoplepod. I wanted to take a quick moment to thank everybody for listening to the show. This is episode 200, which is absolutely bananas to think about that Chris and I started this in a closet in Arizona back in 2010 and have continued these past almost 5 years now and talked to some of the most interesting and coolest people that I never thought I'd actually be able to talk to. So you guys as listeners are a huge part of that. If you didn't listen to the show, we wouldn't be doing it. So thank you very, very much. Here's to 200 more, but we'll take it one day at a time. We've got a lot of great interviews coming up, and we'll see you all next week.